And this is Abby. Welcome to Concussion, the podcast that dives deep into the world of brain trauma, breakthrough treatments, and inspiring recovery stories. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up, Ab? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Travis. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. We're doing our setup a little bit different this evening. Uh, we're at, everybody's going to be connected via Riverside, and I'm at my house. Abby's at her house, and we have a guest that is coming on soon, and she is going to be basically telling us her experiences with getting diagnosed with or getting the getting diagnosed with the flu. I don't know the whole story yet, so we're going to hear it from her soon. But I think that's
Yeah,
kind of
you
like
get
a
her first.
common thing where they
So,
not, a misdiagnosis, like, because it's concussions are hard to like nail down, really, especially in say an urgent care that doesn't have access to like MRIs and CAT scans and things like that.
well, we'll hear from her as to how that all transpired. And
Okay.
you're right. In some ways, it can be hard to diagnose, but in other ways, it's the symptoms that lead you to the diagnosis. But the cool part here is your concussion was 9 years ago,
Right.
and you had your experience of how it was never really brought to your attention, never had any treatment for it, and kind of had to navigate this messy time. And then now we get to hear from somebody who happened to have one recently, and their experience might have some similarities to yours. It might also have some differences too. And it
Yeah.
just captures what a broad scheme that one diagnosis can carry. Like it, when you hear something like, you know, like a common diagnosis of getting the flu, for instance, or having shingles. Okay, so when you hear that and there's a diagnosis of that, it follows relatively the same path. Starts with pain, develops a rash, gets blisters. There's something to do about it. But with concussions, it's such a massive spectrum of symptoms, of experience, of how you acquire it, what it means in your day to day life. So it'll be kind of neat to compare and contrast your experience and her experience and how this all kind of comes together to allow us to learn a little bit more about what could have been done differently, what went well, what didn't go well.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. Like recently I've been talking to more people about concussions, and like I say, the more I talk to people, the more I'm hearing my story like repeated, like extremely similar, like um sensitivity to light, for instance. As a matter of fact, my eyes are a little bit stressed right now. I have Ange bringing up my glasses.
Your stage hands.
Yeah.
What makes it more sensitive today? Did you do more driving or more computer work?
I think I was outside all day. I think
Oh,
that's
in the
why.
sun.
Yeah. I was literally outside in the sun all day.
Hmm. I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a bright day. I did put on sunblock though.
Oh, there
And
you go.
and somebody at my job, maybe you know this better. I would trust you before I trust him. He says that SPF 100 and SPF 30 are basically the same thing, but the SPF 100 just lasts longer. But I've come to realize that I don't believe anything that anybody says at my work. Nothing.
You're kind of wise to be skeptical of things that you hear at
Yeah,
work. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know enough about SPF as to whether that's true or not.
I
I've heard
gotcha.
rumors along that too that like if it's SPF 15, you have to reapply it every 15 minutes, 30 every 30 minutes. But
Uh,
I don't know enough about what's in SPF to know the science behind it. But if you know not to trust him, I know not to trust him either. So we'll have to wait till there's a dermatologist to weigh in.
yeah, that's what yeah. Dermatologists are good. I had a dermatologist that I was going to for a little while, and he's actually a pretty cool guy. Dr. Nick. You know him?
I do not know Dr. Nick.
No?
No.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. I had like just a couple little like skin tag type things, and you know what happens like when you get old. And it was just like a little thing on my back, and he just like snipped it off, easy peasy, and was done. But I struck up a bunch of good conversations with him.
Oh, good.
Now, is that better? Or no? Should I take them off?
Wait, we should be asking you if that's better. Is that better on your eyes?
So yeah, it's better on my eyes, but
There you go.
do I look goofy?
There's a little bit more reflection, but I have glasses on too. I have reflections.
Oh yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, there is reflection. If I did this, still reflection.
Not as much now. Did you turn some screens off?
Yeah, well, I just moved this like the screen in front of me. I just moved like the bright part that way to the other screen.
Oh, okay.
So it's all good. Yeah, but no, it does. Like these glasses do make my eyes feel a little better.
Okay.
I was on Reddit this weekend, and like somebody asked me that, like, what do I do for light sensitivity, like in their concussion, like, you know, that one I sent you. Somebody says, well, what do you do for light sensitivity? And I was like, actually, nothing really. But and then I started thinking, well, I do wear these glasses all the time, like, and I know we've talked about that before, and I never really thought about it. I guess I don't know, maybe because I've become so accustomed to it, but I do notice that like wearing these glasses like does help. And is that like something that's normal, like still having light sensitivity like 9 years out?
Yeah, especially with a day like this, if you're outside in the sun all day. Yeah, that can make your eyes still pretty sensitive to it. But like the filter part is usually what helps. Like you don't have to wear full on sunglasses once your eyes are bothering you anymore. Just like the light filter ones that you have on now oftentimes can calm it down.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and they do. They work pretty good.
Do you have like the blue light filter on your screens?
I do. I do turn that on. I don't think I have it on. I think it comes on at like 7:00, I think. Like it's set up to automatically come on. I should probably have it. I should probably have it on more. But you know, then I was at the eye doctor one time, and I had mentioned the blue light glasses, and she like scoffed at them. She was like, and I was like, well, they actually kind of helped me. But then I felt dumb because like a doctor was telling me, an eye doctor was like, nah, they don't work. And I was like,
well, we can save that question for a concussion doctor when he comes on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He'll give you his 2 cents on that.
I'm just sending this link out to a few people.
Is this twitching too?
Yeah.
When that person followed us, it scared me. I didn't know what that sound meant.
Oh, yeah. When I was like, oh, yada, yada, followed you. Yeah, that happens. Every time you get a new follower, I have it set up so that it kind of gives me a notification, so I know, so I can say, oh, thanks for the follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then he interacted with us.
Yeah, I just didn't know what that noise meant.
Yeah. I understand that. Because it is just weird to just like...
Doo-doo-doo.
Yeah.
It's like we leveled up on a video game.
Right. That's what we did. We leveled up. We got another follower. So that's like... I always like that. It's hard. They're hard to come by. Followers are hard to come by. When you are like, not well known. Like once, it won't be long. And we'll be like super famous. So, did you talk to Kristy today?
Not today. Let me
I wonder
text
if
her
she.
now.
Oh, I think she's there.
Right on time. Are you able to hear
Hi.
us?
Hello.
Yeah,
How
I
you
can hear
doing?
you.
We can hear you too. Those are two major battles accomplished right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah. All the
Yay.
the audio and visuals are working. I love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, awesome job, Travis. He's got all this set up for us. Kristy, it's so cool of you to
Great.
be on here. I'm really excited to have you tell what you're comfortable sharing about your experience with sustaining a concussion, and just the background. Obviously, I'm a physical therapist that treats concussions. Travis endured a concussion 9 years ago, but due to the way things were at the time, it wasn't really something that was nobody said it to him. There wasn't necessarily a treatment plan in place. So he kind of had to deal with all those lingering effects for quite some time before those dots were connected. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, like what you do for work, and then really what you do in your spare time that's fascinating and challenging all at the same time.
Well, first, thank you for having me, and nice to meet you, Travis.
Oh, nice
I've
to
gotten
meet
to
you,
listen to
Kristy.
a little. Thank you. I gotten to listen to a little bit of the podcast, thanks to Abby telling me
Nice,
about it.
nice. Well, thank you very much for being here and listening. We
And yeah, so I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for. Sorry, I think there was a lag, but thank you. Yeah. Um, I've been teaching for 11 years, and I teach Espanol. Um, and I guess I was an athlete all through high school and college. I was a cheerleader. Um, Pretty intense sport with many opportunities for head injuries, but I don't recall having any serious head injuries during those years. But I definitely was kicked or hit in the head, plenty of times. Don't remember ever being out for a concussion though.
But
In my
even as a
adult
teacher,
life,
I'm going to
what?
stop you there. Even as a teacher, you're in a pretty can be a noisy environment, a high demand environment in terms of multitasking. So, teaching Spanish, you're teaching in a high school setting. What's like a typical day like in terms of what it takes out of you? Like, how much redirecting are you doing? How much noise control are you having to deal with? Just give like a little bit of an idea of what that part is like.
Okay, the demands of teaching. Well, I teach grades 9 through 12, so ninth graders especially are very demanding. Um, and I start around 7:30, so it's pretty early in the morning. Class sizes are anywhere from 20, 25 to 30. So it's a lot of kids at the same time. Usually the day or the class will start with kids coming in immediately and they all talk to you at once. It's kind of something I try to work on with them all year. I can't hear you when you're all talking to me at once. Miss Bernie, da, 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 da. And so I try to establish routines where they're trying to work on something on their own before they talk to me so I can take attendance. But as soon as they come in, my responsibility is the attendance, right? But it's so hard because I'm trying to make sure I have the attendance. I'm getting the attendance. I'm getting set up. I got to get the thing presented on the board, have all my tabs open, have my copies ready, whatever I got to do, my game plan. I'm thinking of my game plan and my attendance. And as I'm trying to think of those things, all the students are asking different things. And even if I established routines the entire school year to wait until it's been 10 minutes, that's the rule, they still ask immediately, can I go to the bathroom? So, it's just a lot of constant input. I know there's a lot of
It
jokes
sounds
on
like you're
social
like
media, but
on stage. So like once your students come in, It's like you're like the master of ceremonies. You're on stage. You have to manage all this at once.
Oh, yeah. I describe it as performing live on stage all day, every day. I'm never, hiding behind a computer. I'm in front of them. I am on all day. Sometimes I get a break during my planning period, but a lot of times I'm doing a hall duty or running errands to the office or something comes up and it's almost inevitable to not deal with students or even just other adults during your planning period. So it's pretty much on, go, go, go all day.
Yeah.
And you feel very responsible for what happens in the classroom. So you're constantly thinking, what should I be doing? What do I got to do next? What should be happening? And you have these 25 to 30 people that you're trying to think about as well. So what does this kid need? And what does this kid need? And trying to keep track of just even, who wanted to go to the bathroom next and who needs help on this assignment. And trying to remember, and they constantly interrupt, right? So you're on a roll, you're starting to teach, okay, let's go, we're doing this, this, and this, and they constantly interrupt you with anything, whether it's, and you hope it's going to be a question that's on task, but half the time it's not a question that's on task. And you have to try to get your train of thought back. And that happens to me a lot, and it's, a good time you can kind of be silly with the kids, but you're like, wait, where was I? What was I saying? And you have to remember, and you have to focus, and you have to try to fight off those distractions, which are really hard to do.
So that's a much better explanation of what it means to be a teacher, because just saying that you're a teacher just kind of like sounds like a passive responsibility, but you're on stage performing, constantly multitasking, redirecting, trying to keep a train moving forward despite all these pulls from each interaction with each student. And then you were very athletic when you were in school, and then now after you do all that all day, what do your evenings look like? What do you participate in? Give us an idea of what your
hold on one sec. Let me
like
let me jump in real quick. So I have to say, like, my little brother, he was a teacher as well. He taught kids that were just a little bit younger. I think he taught third grade. He did that for I think about 5 years, and now he does. He's in sales, but I kind of feel your pain there. He told me, like, he would give me stories all the time about how like difficult it was to get kids to listen, and they always wanted to talk about this and talk about that. And I mean, I guess it would be a little bit different between high schoolers and third graders, but maybe not all the time. So yeah,
it's not that different.
That's not that different. Yeah. He but he really loved it. He had a passion for it, but I think he got, so after my accident, like, he was there when I got into my accident, and it seemed to be after that he just kind of lost the passion to be a teacher. And I think, just being there and seeing that, and all the noise and all the attention that has to be constantly administered to all, the entire class at the same time. I think it took enough out of him to where he said, I got to go do something else. So I definitely know that teaching is very difficult.
Yeah. Takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, it's a lot to remember, right? I have about 150 students a year to remember their names and what they're going through and their personal needs and whatever stories they tell me, and maybe their parents' names or whatever. And I always joke, and I'm doing it in my second language. So
Yeah.
I'm not just teaching in my first language that comes natural and easy to me. I'm doing it in a language that I learned, that I wasn't born with and raised with, that I learned in school and studied and still learning all the time. So it's definitely another challenge of the brain.
Yeah.
And
A lot of concentration.
I tried to learn. I tried to learn Spanish one time, like, years ago. I had a friend who spoke Spanish, and I said basically, like, dude, teach me this. And him and I would talk back and forth together, but I forget now. I don't remember.
Tried to learn it one time.
Yeah, it was a
Absorb
while
it all
ago.
in, spit it all out.
I tried to teach Abby some Spanish
Yeah, she gave me all
during
these
my
packets.
PT.
Yeah, of like different categories,
Yeah.
different conversations. I try to implement it a lot, actually.
I
But yeah,
learned.
it takes more
I
than one time, apparently.
But speaking of like how the brain works, so I learned a little bit of French in third grade, and I still remember it like to this day. Like, and it was relatively easy for me to pick up back then. Second, maybe
No, there
yeah,
you go.
third grade
Yeah,
and
I
fourth
took some
grade.
Japanese when I was younger. I remember some phrases from that. So
Really?
after you do all day of all this multitasking in two languages, what do you do after work in your weekends? Where's your athletic, like
Depending
not your hobbies,
on,
like more so what you do athletically?
okay, well, depending on the other demands of teaching, which is like, after school activities and sports and maybe, I don't know, school plays or whatever I do, attend. I try to fit in exercise. I'm passionate about exercise and fitness. And so I try to go to the gym, do some type of workout. When it's in the warmer days, I try to. Right now, I'm triathlon season, so I'm training for triathlons, and that usually means running, biking, swimming. Sometimes with that, running's pretty low maintenance with what kind of things you need to remember to bring with you. But with swimming, you have a lot of things you have to remember to bring with you. Biking, you want to be prepared, and you have to have the energy for it. I definitely struggle after a busy, hard day of teaching with the energy and mental fortitude to kind of get the willpower to force myself to do the good workout and the training.
But you've
But I
competed,
also,
right?
Wow.
what?
You've competed, right? As a triathlete?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So I
That's
started
impressive.
running. I
Yeah.
started
Don't be
running
shy
in
about what you do with
2020.
athletes.
Thank you guys. Yeah. I got into like a fitness group and I started running on my own in 2020 when we had a lot of that extra free time and started training. I did my first half marathon after working my way up to the training, and it was a slow start. You have to work your way up. It's not going to happen overnight. But I worked my way up. I did a half marathon, and then my friends got me into the triathlons. And I had never had any experience with swimming. I mean, I think I maybe did in elementary school those swim classes you do at your local pool or something. And I like swimming casually for fun, going in the beach and the ocean and swimming. But I never, put a swim cap and goggles on and swam for exercise in my life. And, I rode a bike. I knew how to ride a bike, but it's never like I really went out and planned to do these miles long bike rides for training purposes. It was just maybe like a leisurely thing that you did. So once I got
Now
into the
go ahead.
what?
Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying once I got into the swimming, that's kind of lead on to how I got my concussion.
That's what I
Yeah.
was going to ask. That'll take us
Yeah.
to. So
How did
this is
that
the part
happen?
that Travis is really going to be able to like dive into and identify with. So tell us about how you sustained your concussion, and then those next few encounters, let's say, that you had afterwards. So how did it happen, and what happened from there?
No pun intended. Dive in. Like,
Boom.
Right,
boom.
right. Well, I didn't dive in. That's not how I hit my head, but yeah, I mean, you wouldn't expect swimming to be the one where you get hurt because, bike you could crash and fall but you wear a helmet. And I have broken and injured some parts of my body from running, but really you think you're not going to get hurt swimming. It's pretty low impact sport, but um because I'm new to swimming in the pool and open water, and I've been doing it about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And my friend, she was a swimmer. She taught me how to do those flip turns, and I don't
Mm.
really know what I'm doing with those, right? But in January, February is when you start, you know, ideally you could do it all year round, but by January, February, you want to start getting back in the pool and warming your swimming to work up towards triathlon season. Okay, so I had started January swimming and I was trying to get faster. And swimming in a pool is drastically different than open water swimming. I mean, you could be a really great pool swimmer and you will still have that shock of the difference when you go into an open water swim. But the difference with an open water swim and a pool is that with the pool, you can swim to one end, you can hold on to the wall and take a break. But with an open water swim, there's no breaks. There's nothing to hold on to. You just have to keep going. So when my friend taught me these flip turns a few years ago, I decided to try to do them so that you could go. The idea is you go down to the one end, you can flip turn and go back without stopping. So I was trying to do that to better prepare myself for the triathlons. And I'm not very experienced with them. And I'd been training again for a few weeks and was trying to get faster. So when you're getting faster, it's more room for mistake. And I was swimming from one end to the other end, trying to do the flip turns to get some speed intervals going. And one of my flip turns, I kind of got myself upside down and backwards. I didn't realize that I'd got myself flipped around the wrong way. So I went up and I thought I was coming up out of the water. Like you do the turn and then you kind of come up for air and you keep swimming. Well, I somehow got backwards and instead of coming up towards the water in the air, I went straight for the wall. So I went and I smacked the top of my head on the wall. And it hurt. It hurt. It hurt, but I've hit my head tons of times in my life. Getting into the car or something or this and that, and you think, okay, I hit my head, whoop-de-doo, I'm fine. And I actually did, it hurt pretty bad, so I just was like, all right, well, I better cool down. So I did a couple cool down laps. I even sat in the hot tub for a few minutes to get warm and relax my muscles. And then I got a shower and I went on with my day. I worked that whole school week. I had horrible headaches that whole week. And I get headaches. Teaching gives me headaches sometimes. But I don't suffer from really bad headaches all the time that last all day, right? So I told the kids, I tell them, I'm very social with the students, and I tell them, hey guys, I was swimming yesterday, I hit my head and it hurts and I have a headache and I just thought it would go away. I just expected it to go away. I just hit my head, headache's normal. After you hit your head, it'll go away. And the days went on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was not going away. It just hurt all day long. And I knew something was off, but I didn't really realize I had a concussion or anything. I actually started to think maybe I had a concussion when it was hurting so bad. And I hit my head and I kind of joked with the student. Maybe I have a concussion. I don't know. I just was joking. It wasn't even that serious. But and I casually talked to the school medical professionals, the nurse and the physical therapist. I'm friendly with them and just said, hey, what do you guys know about concussions? I hit my head and I didn't really, and they're not my doctors, right? So I didn't ask them. They didn't give me a concussion test or anything, but I just kind of asked, hey, what do you guys know about concussions? And I hit my head, I have a headache. And they both basically just said, if it doesn't feel better soon, go to the doctor, right? If you don't feel better soon, go to the doctor. And I was like, okay, yeah. Well, Friday, I was like, maybe it's just a busy work week. I gotta get some rest. I'll wait for the weekend. Weekend comes around. It was Valentine's Day weekend. Went out to dinner Friday night. Saturday, I had my cousin's baby shower. And so busy, living life to the fullest, whatever. And Saturday, on the drive home from the baby shower, I wasn't driving. I started vomiting. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so painful. It hurt. My whole body hurt. My stomach hurt. And I still didn't totally realize that it was connected to my head. I thought, maybe I ate something bad at that baby shower. It made me sick. Or maybe the dinner from last night was making me sick. Or I caught a virus, a stomach flu or bug going around. but there was a big part of me that knew, something's wrong with me. And I thought about going to the emergency room that night on the drive home, but I felt so horrible. All I wanted to do was just go in my own bed and sleep. So that's what I did. I went home, went to sleep. Then the next day I was like, I should probably go to the urgent care and get checked out. I am not too well informed or educated on what urgent cares can really do for you. I later learned that there is an infographic that tells you what you should go to the emergency room for, what you should go to the urgent care for, and what you should go to your primary care doctor for. There is an infographic that the hospital puts out. I learned about that later. I'm like, that would have been helpful. But for head injuries, you can't go to urgent care. You're supposed to go to the emergency room. But I wasn't really convinced at the time that it was a head injury. I didn't know what it was. I had a suspicion, but anyway, I go to the urgent care and I walk in there and I tell the doctor and the nurse, whoever's working there, I tell them, hey, I hit my head on Monday. I've had headaches all week and I was vomiting all night yesterday. And they asked, so are you here because you hit your head or for the vomiting? And I said, well, I think they might be connected. And I was a little disappointed that, they didn't have that same thought as me. Like maybe they're connected, like, all the details. They wanted to treat one thing or the other. And so I said, I think they're connected and whatever. They said, well, we can't really do anything for you here. If you want a CT of your head, you're going to have to go to the emergency room. We can give you a flu test and some nausea medication. And
So
I was like,
that's where we are right now. So you went to the urgent care. You said, I hit my head. I've had terrible headaches and now I'm vomiting. And they're like, well, we can give you a flu test.
yeah,
That was kind of what you were left with there.
right. Which
So
I'm
what do
pretty
you
sure they
do with
built
that?
before. So what'd you say?
So what do you do with that?
Right. Well, I took the flu test. It was immediately negative or whatever, and I kind of figured it was. And I just felt, again, I could have gone to emergency room right after that. But I guess I felt so, there was still that part of me that felt like this might not be a concussion. And I don't want to go to the emergency room and get this huge bill and get a CT of my head for no reason.
Yeah.
It's expensive. And I already had an experience in the past where I went to urgent care and they couldn't help me. And then I had to go to emergency room and I had to pay for both visits. So I wasn't going to put myself through that again. And I was like, listen, I'm just going to go to my primary care doctor the next day. I made a sick appointment, went in. My primary care doctor is very knowledgeable and wonderful. I talked to him about my symptoms. He ran a bunch of tests on me, balance, nerve tests, like eye tests. He did it all. He did a full thing. I mean, nobody else even did one thing to me except for a student, which I want to tell you that story too because it's adorable. But yeah, he ran all these tests and he said, yes, you are concussed. You are very concussed and I'm pulling you off of work. I'm pulling you out of work.
Wow.
And
Just what were you experiencing at that point with your symptoms? Like aside from the headache and the vomiting.
I still just had pretty bad headaches. I would get waves of nausea, but I hadn't vomited again after that first Saturday. I don't really know what triggered the vomiting. I don't know if it was just overstimulation or the car or something. But yeah, I had one other time a couple weeks later. Well, I'll talk about maybe that I got a little nauseous worse and I was a little worried that I wasn't fully healed from the concussion. But
so was it mainly just headaches?
Yeah, it was mostly just headaches. I mean, I wasn't really, the headaches were so bad that that's all I could think about. So maybe if there were other symptoms like lack of focus or memory, I feel like I couldn't even remember them because I was thinking of I just hurt and
Right.
everything was a struggle. So it
That
was
the
because
pain was
when your
taking
brain is
precedence.
hurting. Oh my gosh, I have a newfound like understanding and sympathy for anybody who's ever had a brain injury or is in the middle of a brain injury because not having your brain, I mean, I would rather break a bone or anything else because when I broke my ankle, I could do anything I wanted minus use my ankle. Like it, so with the brain, I couldn't do anything. It just felt so crippling and was not fun.
Or
That's
So
did you find yourself being like fatigued at all, or you don't remember? And then another question, like, how did you feel when the doctor said, "Yep, you're right, you are concussed"? Like that is like, did you feel like, ah, I knew it, or were you like,
yeah,
did it make you
so
worry?
well, I had a feeling I was concussed because I had just the headaches. I was joking about it with the students, and one of my students, she said, "I can give you a concussion test," and she said, "Follow my finger," and she made me do this little finger test. And she said, "Yeah, I think you have a concussion." And I just think it's awesome that a teenage
wow.
girl in my class could diagnose me
That student's gonna be a
on her
doctor one
own,
day.
and she turned out to be right. Yeah, I know. She's very smart. She's a very smart girl, and she told me later that she knew that how to do that because her mom had a concussion. And what I think is awesome about that is that she paid attention and
Yeah,
she learned what the doctor did. And not a lot of teenagers do that. I mean, she really paid attention and learned something and then
Yeah,
applied it to me.
yeah.
And I was grateful that she did that and really impressed by this young lady. But yeah, so when the doctor told me that I had a concussion, I'll be honest, I burst into tears.
yeah,
Um, and my joke is that that's one way, I'll explain more later. But one way I learned that I know I love my job, even as hard and exhausting as it is, and difficult, and all the bad parts of it. Um, I think I secretly love my job because I cried as soon as he said you can't work for probably a few weeks. Um, I just cried. So a lot of things came into my head then. Missing work, the stress of what do you have to do with that, and I don't know, the fear of what damage did I do to my brain that I don't know about, right? And what happens next. But my doctor, as he's so wonderful, like I said, he told me that when you have a head injury, you have less control of your emotions. And it's okay to cry and you're allowed to cry. And he was just so great. And I just love that about him. But so yeah, I guess I was just in shock and I just didn't know what to do. And um, he prescribed me a week of rest. And that first week, I did not rest. I was stressed out. I was telling all my friends and family what happened. I was communicating with work. I had to fill out FMLA paperwork. I had to make sub plans. I had to put sick leave in. And if anybody who knows anything about teachers, it's not just, hey boss, I can't come in. You got to fill it out online. You got to email the appropriate people. You got to type up your plans. You got to make sure copies are made. You got to send your roster to the right people. Like, it's tedious. It's a several step process. So yeah, it was stressful and it was hard. And
During that time, your doctor acknowledged with you that, first of all, that the emotional side is going to be a factor. Travis, can you imagine how different things would have been for you if someone had even said that to you
yeah.
after you had your head injury?
So like I'm right on board with you there. Like when I came home from the hospital, I would be watching like a commercial, a TV commercial, and it would be a little bit sad. It was like, one of those like we want to get you in the emotions, like a little sad commercial, and I would be devastated. Like, and just thinking about it now, like I still get like a little emotional over things like these overly sad emotions, like still. So I
I definitely can relate with that. I guess that's one thing that's always been hard is because I'm a typical dude. I don't get like super emotional about things. Well, I used to not, but now after that, like I found myself like just being utterly devastated and crying at like a trailer to a movie or like a TV commercial or something, and I just didn't understand why. But I never connected that. I never was like, oh, well, it was because I have a brain injury. It was just because it was just that thing was just extremely sad. It has not like the brain injury didn't have anything to do with it because I didn't even know that that was a possibility. And the
But
same
imagine if
way,
someone had told you that.
yeah, if someone had told me that, like I could have at least been more aware. But
Yeah. So like
and
that's very
Yeah, well, it
admirable
helped
that your
me.
doctor said that.
Yeah, it helped me to be more gentle on myself and be more aware of, what was in my control and what's not in my control. And yeah, I'm very grateful because I mean, I am a person who cries and has emotions and stuff regularly, but you'd think if you told a teacher they have to stay home from work for a week, they'd be cheering for joy. But I
Yeah.
cried, and yeah, I don't know. That first week was hard, but yeah.
That's important what you said though. Like by having your doctor tell you that, you were more gentle on yourself, meaning that you gave yourself a little bit more understanding in terms of this is going to be harder to manage with my emotions because somebody told me that's a symptom of what I'm experiencing. Like that part there is so important so that way you're less in the dark in terms of all these other changes that you're going to experience that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily associate with a concussion. So like
yeah,
that was a really impactful thing that he did by telling you that right off the bat. And then you're right, all of the things that you have to deal with afterwards that would be emotional to begin with, feeling like your job is being put on hold, now is even harder to process because the emotional side is a little bit more impactful after a concussion.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the first time I heard about the emotions was when Abby told me a couple months ago. Like I didn't know what was happening. Like I would just get super angry or super sad. I never got the super happy. Like I don't think it works that way. But
You get super motivated.
super motivated.
Yeah. It's inspiring to be around. But yeah, like all that is really tough to deal with when you feel like you don't have any sort of explanation for it. And then all of that extra work, like if you break your arm and you can't teach, filling out all that paperwork is the biggest nuisance it's going to be is you have to type with one hand or write with one hand. But after a concussion,
Mm-hmm.
filling out all these detailed forms, it's like having a 12-hour homework assignment you have to complete just to not go to work. But the whole reason you can't go to work is because you can't concentrate. Can't do any of that without having a headache. So the irony there is also something that I find worth mentioning because we don't have a process to help folks who've had a concussion do all of their paperwork to be out of work in a way that they could actually accommodate.
Right. And it's very obvious that
Oh yeah.
it's obvious that somebody would be typing slower because they only have one hand to do it with. If it, say your arm was broken, but nobody can see how hard it is when it's your brain that's broken, and it's just hard, and nobody can see that though.
Yeah. So that's a big toll to take, the really hard pill to swallow of you have to be out of your work that you love. You have to do all of this extra work to be out of work, and you have to handle all this on relatively fragile emotional state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
from
And my doctor had also ordered the X-ray of my neck and CAT scan or CT
mhm.
of my head, and so that was another thing is I had to get to those appointments that first week. I wasn't supposed to drive, so even though I had driven myself to work that whole week before I knew I was concussed, but I wasn't supposed to drive, so I had to, find some friends. Luckily, I had some retired friends that helped me out, and because all this is happening during the workday. But yeah, I had to be. That week was so busy because I was on the phone with school, on the phone with human resources, on the phone with the doctor's office trying to get the scripts to be sent to where they needed to be sent, trying to call people for rides, communicate with people with that, and just updating my friends and family on what was going on. So it was very emotionally draining. And, I'm a very active and achieving person. So when I think if I have a few days off for work, I better get my entire house cleaned or something. But I couldn't do that. And that was very frustrating. Every time I did try to do something, I had a headache and it just slowed me down.
Yeah. And then from that point of still having symptoms, managing all of that, then it's time to like, all right, what do you do with this? So up until this point, you've mentioned you've hit your head before. So you probably have some like background expectations of what it means after you've hit your head. What changed in terms of your understanding of the consequences of a concussion and then what it means to recover from a concussion?
Yeah, I guess I feel like I probably just knew a lot of the same things that the average Joe would know about a
Mm-hmm.
concussion. I know I was a coach of sports of athletics at the high school as well, and they used to do a pre-concussion test and for a baseline concussion
Mm-hmm.
baseline testing, and then they would compare that, I guess, later if a kid hit their head. I knew that as soon as they hit their head and they had symptoms that we had to pull them out. I knew that you don't want to hit your head twice in a row if it's really bad.
That's a good thing to
um
know. Most people don't know that.
yeah, like we pull them out and we don't return them to play until they are cleared by a doctor, which is a reason why a lot of students hide their head injuries because they don't want to be pulled out, which
You
is
are
a
correct.
problem.
Yeah, that's
Um,
something to think about there for sure. Like that's people do that all the time.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and even I thought about it like, do I really need to go to the doctor? Can I just suck this up and maybe my headache will go away?
What do you
And
think would
looking
happen if you
back,
didn't go to the doctor? Or
I
if
have
you
no
went to a
idea.
doctor who didn't understand what concussions were? What if you went to somebody that was the same type of understanding as the urgent care? What would have been
Well, I
different for
think
you? Would you have just kept pushing through
you
it?
mentioned something like that to me. You mentioned something like that to me. Like sometimes doctors be like, "Okay, stay home for 3 days and then you're good."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my doctor, yeah, he wanted to evaluate me each week, and each time he told me, "I need you to stay home for another week because I don't think your concussion has healed." I cried. But uh, yeah, I don't know what I would have done. I think I just would have pushed through, muscled through. I think,
Yeah.
as I probably have done with most things in life with
Well, what would
teaching,
have suffered because of that?
Um, I think that I probably would have been less cheerful and jolly with my students. I'd be a little more, you know, irritable. I was definitely irritable with
Yeah.
the concussion. So we talked about the emotions. Oh my gosh, that was the biggest one for me. There was the crying a little bit, but really I had this irritation. Like everything just made me so annoyed.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
I didn't, I would have taken that out on the students. Hope I wouldn't, but everything they would have done, they're already, no offense, they're already kind of annoying in their own way, but in the most loving way, right? But no, if you're easily irritated because of your head injury, oh my gosh, everything those kids say when they call out and this and that and the bathroom and then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, and you just not be able to take it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know. I
So it could
I
have
think I
affected your relationship with your students, how well you taught.
Yeah, I think I would have taken, probably tried to take more breaks with the kids or something, maybe. Hey guys, I need a few minutes. My head hurts. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what would have happened. I think maybe I would have just kept going and waiting until the headaches went away. and maybe after several weeks they would have went away, but I wouldn't have recovered and healed the best way possible. And that is really what I'm so grateful for. A couple things. One, I'm proud of myself for being my own advocate. I didn't do it right away with, I gave it a week. I thought it'll go away. But when it didn't, I sought out, I sought out medical care. And when I thought that my medical care was insufficient, I continued to find more medical care because I think that's so easy. It doesn't matter what your medical issue is, concussion or anything else. I think it's so easy for people to just blindly trust their one medical professional and not get a second opinion. And sometimes if you know in your gut something is wrong, it's okay to keep asking. And the other thing I'm really grateful for, right. The other thing is having medical professionals who know what they're talking about. Because like you said earlier, they could have just said, oh, you're fine, or stay home a couple of days. But I had a doctor that said, no, you need to rest your brain. You need to heal. This is important that you need to heal and rest. And I had talked to some friends and family actually. I had some friends and family who've also had concussions, and they highly recommended physical therapy for concussions, which I would have never thought of on my own. My doctor, he didn't mention it, but I asked him about it, and he recommended the best physical therapist in the world, Abby.
Oh.
And I went to go see her, and I have no regrets. I think it was the best decision I ever could have made, working on healing my brain and building back up its strength and challenging it slowly. And we talked about earlier when I was trying to figure out whether I had a concussion or not, right? And going to the doctor, there was still a small part of me that was not convinced that I really had a concussion. I mean, I trusted my doctor, and I knew my head was hurting, and I knew something was wrong. But I was like, really? Did I really hit my head on the pool wall that hard? That's impossible. Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And it wasn't until Abby made me do the virtual reality headset.
Yeah.
And it showed like the precise inaccuracies of my vision and how my eyes were communicating with my brain and each other. And Abby was so wonderful in explaining it all, but you could actually see where this brain injury affected me. And that's when I was like, okay, here's the proof. I finally have proof,
That's so important too. Like when your belief system changed, because like you said, a lot of folks are gonna be like, this can't be a concussion. I know I hit my head, but all these other things just don't make sense. So for you, that validation came with seeing something visible. It's like, this is the consequence.
Yeah, it was the most concrete evidence that hitting my head was affecting me in some way and made me want to take my recovery more seriously as well.
That's good.
Nice.
Good to know as to like where that switch happens. And I think Travis, so I use the VR headset on Travis as well to kind of give him a layout of that. And I think that provided you that same sense of validity of, this is not just in my head, so to speak.
Right.
Like this impulse control issue, everything that you're feeling with your driving, like you needed to see it to have a label for it.
Yeah. And a lot of the driving is like that irritability, it is like, I'm with you there. Like I still get irritated very easily about stuff. Especially driving. Like driving is like the one thing like that just irritates the heck out of me. But I think that irritation, it can cause, what would you say, like you to get more tired because you're so agitated, and then you're more agitated because you're more tired. It's like this, back and forth that just perpetuates. It's self-perpetuating.
Yeah. And Chrissy, the point that you made about being your own advocate, like that part can't be amplified enough because you're in a very lucky category of people who your primary care has a really high concussion IQ. He's phenomenal in terms of how he can detect these things and put it all together and look at things that actually matter, like in terms of your balance, your function, your neck. If you had been in this exact same scenario, you know, live in the same place, do the same thing, have all the same resources, if you just happen to have a different doctor, you could have been in someone's office who says, well, you might, but your headaches will go away. Here's some medication. Call me in 4 months. In that scenario, your recovery would have looked incredibly different. So, that part of knowing that you have to continue to seek care if you're not getting your symptoms addressed is so, so important, because this podcast illustrates what happened with Travis, because he was told by many, many medical doctors what he needed to do after his accident, and not one of them suggested physical therapy for your concussion or your brain injury. So that's a very real circumstance. But your message of being your own advocate to find the care that matches your needs is so important.
Yeah, I remember talking to you one time about how a lot of times athletes or just even accident victims get hurt and they come in for physical therapy for random body parts but never the head. And oftentimes in maybe a athletic or accident, car accident, whatever type of injury, the head was also hit, the head was also affected, but people seem to forget about it. You know, they're working on the broken or pulled muscles or whatever parts. So, you know, that stood out to me. Is now I will look at injuries for other people in the future differently. If they get hurt in a certain way, I'm going to say, you know, how's your head too? Like, I'm going to think more about how's your head. Make sure you're taking care of that head.
Yeah.
If someone gets hurt, I want to
And
think
how
about
your
that.
head, you know now firsthand how your head affects everything else. You know that symptoms of just higher irritability, symptoms of nausea with movement, all those things that, what if they don't happen to have headaches? You're still going to be able to recognize all those other symptoms. Now you're on the advocate side. Like now you're
Right.
going to be able to pull this stuff out like a magnet from these folks that it might not be on their radar at all, to realize that those things might be connected.
Yeah, and I have a lot more sympathy for concussions. Not that I'm not a sympathetic for a person to begin with, but you know, it definitely changed my perspective. And you know, the brain. Everyone knows the brain is so important to all of your functioning in your body, but everybody has different levels of knowledge and skills, and everybody, I try to tell the students this all the time, everybody is smart in their own way, or smart about something in some category that you know that you're well educated about, you're well informed about. But for me, you know, it was so important to do the proper treatment to take care of my brain, because my job relies on my brain. I went to school for many years to become a teacher. I got my master's degree. I went to school for that. Making all these decisions constantly, these micro decisions in the classroom all day, every day, my career relies on my brain. So it was so important to fix that and make sure, you know, I took care of it and took it seriously. And I'm grateful for doctors that, medical professionals that wanted me to take it seriously and allowed me to and encouraged me to. You know, my doctor really did not want me to go back until I felt like he wanted me to feel great again. Like he did not, he said if I was having any symptoms, he did not want me to go back. And I think he probably would have kept me out another week, even. But I was like, I'm ready to go back. I can't take this anymore.
Ready to get back to normal.
Yeah. And so when he cleared me, I was like, yay! And then I was like, Man, if that wasn't proof that I liked my job, because every time he told me to stay home, I cried, and then when he cleared me, I was in the best mood I'd been in weeks. I think that says a lot right there.
So let me ask you, how long ago was the concussion?
This was this February, so it's now June, so 4 months.
Gotcha. Do you feel like there's any like lingering effects? Like you get maybe agitated a little bit more easily, but a little bit easier now, or are you kind of like 100% back to old Kristy?
I'm not 100% sure that I'm 100% back to normal and healed. Um, but I will say I was really worried about if those side effects were going to come out in the classroom, irritability or whatever, things like that. But it's really hard to tell, to be honest, the difference between me now and me pre-concussion. I, I think, it was already a hard job to focus and remember everything. And so I think, my doctor, I just had a follow-up appointment not too long ago with him, and he asked, how you feeling with the concussion? And I said, I think I feel okay. I do feel as normal can feel, whatever that is. So I don't really know if there are super lingering side effects. I will say that I had a rough couple months, with personal things in the life, like losing family members. And so the one day at school, I jammed my finger in between the desk and the chair, and I burst into tears immediately. But I think anybody can understand that that was a rough patch. Maybe if I jammed my finger normally, I probably wouldn't have cried. But I also had a lot of other family tragedies and things like that to be dealing with, so I don't think anybody can blame me for crying, whether I had a concussion or not. But I did wonder, did having the concussion just make it that much easier for me to cry when I jammed my finger?
And I like the term that you used, micro decisions. I'm going to steal that from now on, because it's hard for people to explain what happens when there's a lot of cognitive demand. So like with teaching, you're right, you're constantly making micro decisions as to, can you get up and go to the bathroom? Can you redirect the conversation? Like all these decisions are almost continuous. And I'm sure we've all heard of decision fatigue. Mm-hmm. So now you have a word to match that symptom of the micro decisions that it takes to be able to manage a classroom or to manage other folks that have very demanding jobs. Like if you're in a management position, it sounds relatively easy because you're not doing the physical labor that goes with it, but you're constantly making decisions. So those might be small little micro decisions, but still it carries its own level of fatigue. So I'm going to take that term from you now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing to kind of follow up again with what Travis said about, is this still affecting me now? I think the hardest part is that, you had worked with me a lot of physical therapy. You would make me do these memory tasks and games, and then you'd interrupt me with a math problem or run to that side of the room, and I had to still try to remember what the memory was. And that is a lot like teaching, because I'll be working with a student on, okay, we're working on this on their worksheet or something, we're talking about something, and a student will interrupt and say, hey, can I go to the bathroom, or can I get a drink of water, or can you help me next? Or can I go see another teacher? Whatever they want, whatever they're asking. And I have to sit there and process what they're asking while I'm still in the middle of processing what I was already doing. And then I have to go back to what I was doing and try to remember. And a lot of times I find myself going like, and I feel like they're staring at me. They're like, come on, answer me immediately. They want you to answer them immediately. And I'm like processing because I'm still thinking about what I was already doing. And now I have to kind of stop that thought and think about what you just said. I have to think about what you said, realize what you're saying, make a decision, and then say it back. And I just feel like sometimes that feels slower. But like I said, I don't really know if I'm that much slower than I was before, because that was hard even before the concussion.
Yeah, don't feel too
So-
bad about that, because for sure, like, I'll walk into my room to get something, and I'll see my cat and I'll pet it, and I'll be like, oh, and then I forget what I went in there for. I have no idea. Like, I'm totally lost.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the biggest one. I think that happened to me anyway, pre-concussion, but
Yeah,
I
me
do remember that happening even more post-concussion. The going downstairs to get something, by the time I get downstairs, I don't even remember what it was. And I go back upstairs and then I say, oh man, I gotta go back downstairs and get it again.
Oh yeah, that
So I
happens to me all the
totally can
time.
relate to that.
Yeah.
Interruptions and interference, right? So in to kind of wrap this all up, if you had to kind of take your entire experience, put it into a nutshell, what changed from your experience, what changed in terms of your impressions and understandings of concussions?
Well, I think that, like I was saying earlier, I just had the average Joe understanding about concussions. I think a lot of people just said, less noise, less lights, things like that. But for me, actually, lights weren't really bothering me. I don't remember having a real bad sensitivity to light, and I even am someone who prefers dim lights, and I have those light filters in my classroom. But some of the like stereotypical symptoms that people say with concussions, I wasn't really experiencing. I more so just was having the headaches and maybe the focusing and things like that. But and loud noises weren't great, but it wasn't like, I just think that I used to just think, concussion means you can't have bright lights and loud noise, but really that wasn't the problem for me. The problem was like the thinking and the processing and the doing things. That was the big thing for the concussion for me. And I learned so much about concussions from both you and my doctor, because you guys taught me that when with your brain, you have to let it rest. And every time you are getting a headache, it is setting you back in the healing. That's what my doctor would say. He's like, you can do something. And I remember talking to you because I wanted to get back into running and stuff after this concussion. And it was basically like you have to work your way up, to your brain. And then you described it as warming up a pot of water on the stove, but don't let it boil. And that was such a hard thing to do, because I always wanted to do things, and it was really hard to figure out when I should stop because of my headache. But the biggest thing I want to take away is that this was the first time in my life that I had to walk away for a large chunk of time from work. And that was one of the hardest things that I've done with the boundaries with work. And luckily they told me after that I was on FMLA, they said, you're not allowed to work. And my poor coworkers had to plan all my lessons for me, because substitutes, they don't plan lessons for you. So the other teachers had to carry that burden, which I feel bad about, but I'm grateful for. And nobody was doing the grading either. So, when I came back, I did all the grading. This wasn't a planned injury, like a maternity leave or a surgery where the sub is supposed to come in and grade. It was just a random sub every day. So I learned a lot about, prioritizing my own medical needs over my job, sort of, because if I didn't heal myself, and my job was incredibly supportive. I am so grateful how supportive they were. But if I didn't heal myself, I couldn't be there for the job. So kind of like reminding yourself a couple things, like concussion is not going to look the same for everybody. You need to prioritize your medical needs and your healing over anything else so that you can go back to your life. And I think the things that people say, like you can't watch TV and you can't read and all the stereotypical things, they weren't necessarily true for me. I just couldn't do anything in excess. I couldn't do anything until it would hurt. Anything I did, whether it was dishes or laundry or chores, if it hurt my head, I had to stop.
I remember something similar. Like one of the
worst things I think I did, as soon as I came out of the hospital, like very, very soon, my mom took me to the mall, and I went to the mall, and there was so many different lights and so many different people talking. When I came home from the mall, I literally had to sleep for like 2 days. Like it was it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, I think. But yeah, I guess like you're saying, and Abby has said, if you've seen one concussion, you've seen one concussion, because there's so many different effects for each person. You know, it's like sounds really bothered me. Like that was like my number one thing. Like I couldn't take all like lots of noise, and I still have problems with it today. Like I wear like AirPods everywhere, so that, you know, it's just dulled down a little bit. So yeah, lights and noise, like that one got me. Didn't get you too much, and that just shows like you can have a concussion and have, you know, but then the emotionality is the same. So the emotionality was the same. The light and sounds were different. So man, concussions are complex for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So thank you for, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I learned from you too. It also depends where you hit your head. You taught me that, like, because of where I hit my head, it affected my eyes. You know, you drew me a little map. You drew me a little thing. And so I didn't think of that too. Like, wow, it's not just hitting your head, it's how you hit your head, where you hit your head, how hard you hit your head, can all have effect on you.
Yeah, so many variables there. And the symptoms have just as wide of a variety as the variables that go into how you heard it. But thank you so much for sharing all of that, because that just illustrates how important it is to have different discussions about how concussions can affect people differently. So now we have an example for people to be able to pull out just the headaches and the nausea initially, but all the things that you described so well about what it takes to do your job well, and all those decisions that you have to make on a constant basis, the interruptions, the interference, and knowing that those things can improve if you do something to improve it. And your message about being your own advocate to get to the right provider is so important, because otherwise you just accept what you're told. And that could mean that you're in a situation where you're going without intervention for a very long period of time, if at all. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Yeah, really appreciate it. I love to hear stories. And very, very relatable. Like I said, my little brother was a teacher, and he told me so many stories about, you know, teaching and everything that you just said. You know, he said to me, you know, a couple years ago when he was still teaching, and his wife is a teacher too, and she is still a teacher. She teaches like she deals with like a lot of autistic children and nonverbal children, but she's in, you know, the local school district, and so was my little brother Matt. But yeah, I mean, appreciate it so much. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Is there anything that you would say to yourself when this first happened, like the first day? What would you say to yourself? Like, don't go to urgent care, just go right to your primary care doctor, or what do you think?
I guess so. I mean, I think it's pretty normal for someone to, you know, get a little bump on the head and think that's fine. And I guess I learned that even a seemingly small bump to the head that you think I shouldn't give you a concussion could give you a concussion. So looking back, I mean, it probably would have been a good idea to call my doctor that night or the first thing the next day and say, hey, can I get an appointment and come get checked out? But I did it pretty quick. I think a week was pretty quick. I mean, Abby told me that there's people who wait months before they get treatment, and it's much better and easier to heal when you do it right away. So that's the thing I would say, is that it's okay if you waited a few days for the headache to go away. It's okay if you waited a week, but go to the doctor and get checked out
Yeah,
as
yeah,
soon as you feel like something's wrong.
yeah, that's great advice. And a couple weeks ago, we interviewed Lonnie, and
he said that his was what, 6 weeks before he went back, and the only reason he went back was because he lost vision in his left eye. So yeah, I think that's very important to, if you hit your head, go get checked out. Like it might be
If
nothing.
things aren't right after that, get checked out again.
Well,
Yeah.
and I never considered that your symptoms could get worse, right? You think you get hurt and then you just start healing from there. But with a brain, I don't think that's what happens. You don't just get hurt and then start healing. I had headaches, but then by the end of the week I was vomiting, which means I was getting worse, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another good point too, is that unless you do something about it, it's not necessarily just going to heal on its own. And the more your symptoms are provoked, sometimes the worse the symptoms can get. So for Lonnie, it was a lot of concentration and exertion led to some visual compromise. For you, it was a lot of driving, concentrating, dealing with kids, headaches led to the vomiting side of it. So yeah, all that can happen. It's not all going to happen necessarily the night of your concussion. It can certainly be spread through the days and weeks that follow until you get something done about it. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us, and it was great to have you on here. Travis and I really appreciate all your time and willingness to share everything.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my first
Sure
time
thing.
being on a podcast, so thank you. And I
You did
just
great.
thank you. I just hope that everybody takes their head injuries seriously.
Yes, that's exactly right. Take your head
And
injury
nice to meet
serious.
you, Travis.
Yes, nice to meet you too, Kristy. I appreciate you coming on here talking. I'm gonna have this up in not too long, maybe a couple of days. You know, I'll edit it and throw it up on YouTube, and it'll be good. I think you gave a lot of good information, and I think it's very good for people to hear real world stories that happen to actual real people and how it affects their real lives. Because this happens to many people. Many people hit their head and just get knocked completely out of, not just knocked out, but like knocked out of their normal routine
Life.
where they get up and they go to work every day, and all of a sudden they're not doing that anymore. And that is that's a real conundrum for a lot of people. I know for me, like, that's one of the things. I just wanted to get back to normal, just back to my job. And
It was emotionally draining.
yeah,
Yeah, and it doesn't just have to be a big accident. It can be something small and stupid, like hitting your head in the pool.
yeah, or
So
Lessons to learn everywhere.
yeah, or tripping and falling over. Like, hitting your head is very serious, and I think that's a very good advice that you would give your old self. Just get checked out.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I look forward to listening to the podcast and future episodes. And if you guys ever want to get into triathlons, let me know.
So I might take it. So as a triathlon, that's 100 miles on the bike, marathon, 26
No.
miles, and
That's
3
an
miles.
Ironman.
That's an
I have
Ironman.
friends who do the Ironman. I have friends who do that. I'm not quite there yet.
I gotcha.
Maybe someday.
So
But-
I was big into running at one time in my life, and I wanted to do one of the ultra marathons, like the 100-mile race, the Leadville 100, because I love to run. And yeah, so I looked into triathlons, or the Ironman, I guess, way back then. I mean, just a few years ago, but before I crashed my bike. But yeah, I was big into that stuff. So, but
Well, if you want to get back into it, you now have a contact to be able to get your gateway drug going there.
yeah, I got to get
Yeah.
my allergies figured out.
Dream big, but start small. They have triathlons as small as a super sprint, which is
Okay.
like running 1 mile, and
Now we're
biking just a
talking.
few miles. There are super sprints. I did my first race was a super sprint just to get used to the transitions. But yeah, start small, dream big.
Nice.
Good advice
Awesome.
on that too. All right, you guys have a
Alright.
great night. Thanks so much for everything.
All right, see you guys. See you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.